Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. It is. You buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
Good morning, everybody. Well, it is what? It's Wednesday, right? Let me double check here. It's Wednesday. Yeah, it's Wednesday. Hey. Well, we're still waiting on, some pretty big data coming later in the week. The CPI is not until tomorrow, and today is actually pretty quiet, except for 10-year auction, and that's going to make a tough trade. I may sit this one out. I don't know. I mean, I took a loss yesterday that I was a little unhappy with, and mostly because I thought something was happening, and then volatility kind of constricted on us, and we came down, but then went nowhere after that. And so I'm a little bit concerned about if we're in that kind of contracting volatility environment and we don't have anything super huge happening today, that it might just kind of go nowhere. So we'll see, but I'm going to be a little bit cautious today. But let's come and look at the charts and kind of go over what happened. So you can see here in ZN, yesterday, there was a fall. After most of it was after we left, right? So I took that loss. I'm very unhappy with it, but it's okay. Happened in the past now. But you notice after that, it just kind of went nowhere. So was this comeback just like a push, like a mean reversion push or something? I don't know, because there was some volume behind it. But the thing that was weird is that after that, there was buying through all of this, and it just didn't go. So the limit orders have become more dominant, and that's what I mean when they're clamping down on volatility. And you can see here in the overnight, not a whole lot of movement yet, okay? S&P 500 doing okay after an initial sell, the buy the dip behavior came back in, and we are a little bit higher this morning. And you can see the same thing. I mean, oil, it just looks so funny, right? Because when we came in yesterday, it was oh, it looks so bad. And now all of a sudden, oil looks so good. That is just some, that'll make you seasick with that kind of movement in oil. Gold and silver, on the other hand, still languishing. Copper, is better than it was yesterday, but it's still not looking so hot. When we come over here, so Bitcoin continues to see this buying, trying to get it back up to the 30,000 mark, but I still see very little activity over there. And especially if we had any kind of indication that inflation was coming back, Bitcoin would be in a very, very bad spot, right? And then we got the dollar, 102.31. It's kind of interesting with Bitcoin because, I keep saying, the biggest risk, I think, for Bitcoin is inflation comes back, right? And isn't that kind of in line with the thesis for Bitcoin, though? The people with Bitcoin, they're concerned about inflation. They don't like fiat currencies because it doesn't keep its value, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Is this what would be the best case scenario for them ends up being actually the worst case scenario. So that whole dynamic is a little odd. Anyways, so that puts us here today. Again, no significant news here, but we do have a 10-year note auction at 1 o'clock Eastern time. So we're going to be on the lookout for some icebergs and other behavior, but you can see even just off of the start here, not a whole lot of interest. By the way, good morning, Octavius. Yeah, I mean, one thing we could go for is we could just try going for the long. Sorry, I meant long rates, short treasuries. Just just assume that the supply is going to hurt. But the thing was is that yesterday they handled the new supply really well. So okay. Let's look around, see if we can find anything interesting going on. Nick Timmeros, Wall Street forecasters expect the July CPI to show the headline and core indices rose spot 2% each from June. That would lower the 12-month core CPI to 4.7 from 4.8 in June, while boosting the headline index to 3.3% from 3% in June. Is that not enough? I don't know. I'm not so convinced this is going to be spot 2. It's probably is more likely to be spot 2 though. I don't know. I kind of still feel like spot 3 would make more sense. If we got like a spot 4, then people would freak out, right? Coinbase tells the SEC it no longer thinks crypto is the future of finance. What? I gotta read this one. Before the SEC launched its lawsuit against Coinbase, the exchange was busy promoting crypto as, quote, the future of finance, championing a global open alternative to every financial service. Last year, it reiterated its mission to fuel progress on decentralization, Web3, and the future of finance was all about creating more economic freedom for the world. However, Coinbase now claims it's merely been selling digital Beanie Babies all along. I see. So what caused the about face? Well, it likely has something to do with the SEC charges, alleging that it's been operating an illegal securities exchange for at least 3 years. Listen, if you can go and pre-mine a coin, go get it listed on the exchange, and then people go and buy it, and then you turn around and you sell your coin, that fulfills the role of a security, and I think that it should be treated like a security. Just me. In a desperate fight for survival, Coinbase filed a motion to dismiss the charges on August 1st. That motion, the company backpedaled on most of its visionary claims about crypto powering any new financial system. What a load of crap. Coinbase claims that most digital assets are commodities instead of securities. However, the SEC designated specific assets offerings on Coinbase as unregistered securities, including AMP, Rally, Dervadex. No, I think, listen, even Bitcoin, to be frank, okay, even Bitcoin, because Satoshi, mined a ton of it. He didn't, quote, pre-mine, but he owns a ton of it. So it is a security that was offered by Satoshi Nakamoto. We have no clue who it is. So people don't see. It's so funny. The whole thing. If your Bitcoin needs to dump some Bitcoin, what platform should she use to dump it? I would use Coinbase, but in my opinion, Coinbase is the only exchange that I really feel is trying to be like a genuine, legitimate exchange. Like the other popular ones, are kind of like a grift to try and convince everybody to come over and trade it so that they can pull shenanigans. But Coinbase is like the best place to convert your Bitcoins into actual dollars. And you'll have to be able to go through the know your customer stuff. So you have to go in, like, verify who you are with them. And then that will change the limits on how much you can withdraw at a time. But listen, if cryptocurrencies weren't a security, there wouldn't be anybody going out there copying and pasting the Bitcoin blockchain code and then creating their own coins that have absolutely nothing unique about them, right? They are treating them as a funding source, like securities. And I think that the people that are investing in them have a right to know who they're making rich. Well, oh yes, so I was here on Twitch. Oh, I don't remember this tweet. Nassim Taleb, we knew Chinless Andrew was exaggerating his wealth, that it was all shows, some unmistakable details. He filmed himself in a private plane that was rented and stayed on the ground. Well, you know, I think it's kind of funny, like, what Nassim Taleb, like, considers wealth is probably very different from what a guy like Andrew Tate considers wealth. Andrew kind of shows a lifestyle, at least, that suggests that he's a billionaire, but he's not a billionaire, right? But he was making millions of dollars a month with his Discord before they cut that off, so he does have some money. Just saying. Not a fan of Andrew, though. I am kind of sitting here going like, this should just go away. Like, it weirds me out that Tucker Carlson is so interested in interviewing him and stuff, but I don't know. From his perspective, it's probably just like, well, that's the thing that's going to get us lots of views. Let's go do that. Nick Temeros, the average 30-year fixed mortgage rate ticked up to 7.09% last week, a new high for 2023, and it is hovering near 21-year highs. Purchase activity is near its weakest levels of the year in the Mortgage Bankers Association weekly survey. What's this? USDT just had its first redemptions in almost 2 months for 300 million, and USDC had its first mint in weeks for 300 million, and everyone is supposed to pretend that the stable coin market is real. Yeah, I really like, where do they think that money's coming from? A bit of talk about China that I don't understand, so I won't share that with you. For me, probably need more context on that one. This is, I don't know if I want to jump into this one. This guy says, it's one thing to deplore eugenics on ideological, political, moral grounds. It's quite another to conclude that it wouldn't work in practice. Of course it would. It works for cows, horses, pigs, dogs, etc., etc., etc. And Nassim Taleb says, ignorant Dawkins doesn't get it that such breeding only works only for a single task, like making high-volume milk-producing persons or 100-meter swimmers. Humans have a lot of dimensions by definition, and the environment changes unpredictably. Well, there you go. Yeah. If you were to engage in eugenics, the largest risk to you would be going down a path that ends up making you inflexible against some future unanticipated risk. And every trait that you can find in humans, evolved for some reason somewhere along the line. Yeah, my point is that it's not just immoral to breed humans, it's ineffective principally because humans are not just animals, it's a deeper version of central planning. This is an interesting one because you would think, oh, this doesn't really have anything to do with finance. Why is Taleb talking about it? But it's 100% in line with the things that he talks about with anti-fragility, right? He's making a good point that if you were to start quote unquote breeding humans, you would introduce fragility into the gene pool. It wouldn't be a good thing. And it would be bad for the same reason that, complete domination, central planning is bad. Elon Musk tweeted, I highly recommend the Explorers podcast. For somebody that is so busy, he does every once in a while seem to have the time for some things. I'm looking at my camera here and wondering if I can... that doesn't really solve the problem, does it? Actually makes it a little bit better. I think it must just be my capture card. Maybe I need to get a new capture card. You get something that can go inside the PC. I'll look at that today. What's this? U.S. and Saudi Arabia agree to broad terms for Israel normalization. Report from the Wall Street Journal. Roblox being punished by the market this morning after missing on the top and bottom line. Let's think about this one. Do we think that after this earnings release, Roblox will behave in a more or a less responsible manner? Wait, you're not familiar with Roblox? Man. It's only like, okay, there's like in the world of video games, okay, there's Minecraft and then there's Roblox, right? And Roblox kind of went down the path of like allow people to make full mods, make it available to everybody. Yeah, every wide-eyed, hyperactive, autistic white kid plays Roblox. Yeah, I mean, I've never played it, but if you are a kid, you have probably played it. And man, so if you want to go down a really interesting rabbit hole, okay, there are many stories about kids that feel that their labor was exploited in the world of Roblox, because basically what happens is you can go out and you can put your own mod out there and then people can buy it and you make money, right? And I mean, you can make big bucks from this as well. So often what happens is a team will get together and they'll pick kids up. So you've got like literal kids working basically programming jobs at a startup, right? And then they'll do all of this work and like get cut out from the team so that they don't get to enjoy the profits from the mods that they made. In some cases, kids that were like key contributors. Yeah. It's some of the stories. So when there's been some really good documentaries about this, okay? Some of the stories from this are just crazy. Just crazy. That is happening to kids. Right? So the whole thing has been the controversy. The reason why I say, well, that caused Roblox to act in a more responsible manner is because Roblox, the company, doesn't care. They just want to make the most money, and they are not policing their community very effectively. I mean, this is an issue. This is kind of the issue at the center of all of these kind of internet crowdsourced kind of businesses, right? Like Twitter and Facebook and so forth, is that you have to police your community to some degree, and it doesn't scale very well, right? Like trying to administrate a really large community is really hard, right? I am basically the sole moderator for Discord, and it's summer, so Discord has been relatively quiet, okay? But I have a hard time keeping up with all of the spam. There is so much spam targeted at our server. It's gotten better because I wrote my own scripts. I decided that the tools out there weren't good enough, and I created my own scripts to deal with this. And that helped a lot. that deterred a lot of it, but they still come, man. And that's just spam. Can you imagine if this was like, you know, a community that was like thousands of times larger, right? It's crazy. Oh, whoops. I keep forgetting to turn my speakers off. Maybe I need to get a better card sort of a thing. I don't know. I should worry about that sort of a thing until after I've finished the desk. We're getting so close on the desk, but it's hard to find the time and get everything to work out. But maybe something where, you know, I would have pretty directly on here buttons to turn on and off the speakers, on and off the microphones, and be more clear what's going on. Well, it's been 20 minutes. Nothing's really happening, right? TheEconomist.com is Google's 20-year dominance of search in trouble. The battle of the bots will transform the way people find things on the internet and may upend a lucrative business. Okay, so can I complain about something? I don't like to, I'm trying to not be a complainer, but I want to complain about something. Okay. Google search is not as useful as it used to be, man. Like, if I really want to search on a topic, if I want to be like, especially if it's like a super niche topic, I don't get the results you used to. And like, the internet is not the place to find new novel content like it used to be, because of the centralization. It was like, and I think that Google is partly to blame. Google and Reddit. The fall, a lot of it was Reddit, to be honest with you. Because on Dig was all about like, find a new website that nobody knows about. And, and then that website gets slash-dotted, basically, right? You kind of started to get to a point where, you'd see certain websites come up over and over and over again. When you moved over to Reddit, a lot of subreddits straight up just had whitelists. So like, if you want to submit to r/politics, there's been time periods where if you weren't on the the website was not on the whitelist, it didn't get up. So if I wanted to go out and create like a political blog, for instance, if I went and created a political blog, the only way that I would really have to promote that political blog is Twitter. And I wouldn't really be able to promote it on Reddit. And so the result is, the internet is no longer a place to find new novel content. Right? And then on top of that, all of the search results got gamified. So you not really show up in search anymore either. So, but I don't think that the artificial intelligence solves the problem. In fact, the artificial intelligence makes it worse, because it's recycling the same old content. And then you're just seeding that back out into the internet. And so what you're really actually doing is you're just making the overall quality of the internet worse. That's what I'm seeing happen. This Saudi Arabia-Israel normalization story sounds like a big deal. Maybe we'll talk about it tomorrow when we have more details about where that's kind of going and what impacts that may have on the world. That might be a really positive thing for the world, though, huh? Bloomberg.com, revenge travel isn't so exciting anymore. Okay, there was a significant downtick. There was a little bit of volume on that, so I mean, maybe a small sign that something's happening. Oh man, but you know, here in the micros, you have to stick your neck out for it. So watch it here for a second. There's a strong downtick as well. Do you see some movement in the dollar? Italy's Prime Minister Meloni says the ECB's policy of raising rates is questionable. Well, yeah, I would say that the dollar is still within the range, but I am seeing some movement over here, right? At the same time that I'm seeing the treasuries possibly try and make a breakout. So I'm looking here saying like, okay, is it moving on its own from volume, or is there a correlation? And it looks like there may be a correlation. Although the amount of volume that we saw traded for the 10-year was significant. So the main flow that we have to worry about today is the 10-year auction, right? And the concern has been that they won't be able to meet the supply. And we did see some selling yesterday, right? Seems like the CTAs weren't involved yesterday, right? So that's where I'm kind of turning back towards might make more sense to go short. So I'm kind of keeping an eye out for the short meta order. And what we just saw there is the best indication that you've got, at least so far, that there is possibly a short meta order out there. Okay, but you know, with the way that this market works, you're going to get that point where it seems like, oh yes, this is it, we should get in, and then it's going to revert back in, right? So this is a really unclear which way it's going to go, but for now, that's also why I'm saying, okay, so like if it was a correlation with the dollar or something like that, that would be something that could move the price of the treasury, but wouldn't be flows from hedging for the auction, per se. Well, I guess maybe it could be if somebody has to move their money over to the US so that they can have the money to buy for the auction or something like that. Probably some delta hedging at evens options in ZF. And Octavius is pointing out in Discord some activity in ZT. Some huge ZT bids. And over here on the micro side, a decent amount is traded at that 022. Okay, uptick. Uptick back in the bottom of the range is 11. So back into the range for now. Why Jim Cramer says investors should bet on Disney. Disney may become a value play here at some point, but I'm not so sold on what where they may be going. You know what? No, I just hate Disney. When it really comes down to it, I'm mad at Disney. I'm mad that the Obi-Wan Kenobi series was terrible. I'm mad that the Mandalorian season 4 was terrible. Okay, you need to pay. You need to pay in market capitalization. I know it's a trivial thing. Yeah, don't anger the Star Wars man. It may be childish, but I can do it, and I'm going to. I'm not going to buy. Okay, so I just want to note the micro is holding itself up a little bit higher. You see, they came back to like the 11.5, which again is where they had been, right? But we're still back to 4.2. So there's a little bit of decoupling there, I think, because before there was a point where we were going back and forth at 11.5 and we were more at like 4.015. So it seems to me that the market makers in the micro treasury yield futures are leaning on that this will go short and are saying if you want to buy us, you're going to have to pay for it. Not giving you the best price. Right? Well, you know what's funny? My NT account isn't authorized to trade the micro yields. Apparently, I have to tell them I want to trade it, but since I never have, I can't just say pick it up and do it one day. Yes, because so do you remember the first day that the micro treasury yield futures went live? And I had to get them authorized, and they came back and they said, well, this is a new instrument and it's really super risky. And I almost blew up at them. I'm like, if NinjaTrader customers can't trade it, who is going to trade it? The whole point of this instrument is to have something that is super tiny risk so that people at discount brokers like AMP Futures and NinjaTrader can trade it. And if you aren't letting your customers trade it, then it's just not going to get traded. And so I went through, I got authorized, and I was one of the first people to submit a market order to that market. Yeah, I can trade something that's $32 a tick, but I have to ask to trade something that's $1 a tick, right? Well, I mean, one tick in ZN is going to move the 10-year maybe 5 ticks, but you know, your average winner or loser is going to be like $10 over here, and they're like, oh, you can't trade that. It's just so silly. That was kind of one of the things that got me into like, I'm not really impressed with the broker, because the people back there making the decisions do not really pay attention to what's going on in the market, right? They did not know that a new product was being released and all that stuff. They were even kind of a little bit behind when MES went out, right? There's a bunch of people that are collecting a paycheck and really have no interest in the market. That's why I didn't like about them. That's why I moved. Oh, what's the margin? Yeah, I think it's, you know what? I didn't even know. I think it's like $50 in margin for a contract and like $300 in margin for overnight, something like that. I mean, it is a less liquid market, but come on. It really is kind of silly. Do you not want to become a bigger volume trader to get rid of your day job? I do want to become a bigger volume trader, but not to get rid of my day job. No, I don't think I have any intention of getting rid of my day job anytime soon, to be honest with you. I'm kind of having fun with it right now. So I haven't spoken a lot about it, but I did mention last week sometime that I've switched jobs and I'm enjoying the part of, learning about a new company and doing all of the things and trying to have an impact on the team. I think that this time around I got hired into a role where, I can have a pretty high impact on the culture and the way that we go about site reliability, and I'm really excited about it. It's probably because they'd have trouble closing out positions in the event of a margin call because spread and low liquidity. Well, I mean, as long as you were trading under 10 contracts, I don't think it would be an issue. This is my first week off the sim and I'm trading, 20 lots in what? You're trading 20 lots in ES, that's a lot. And I'm a little concerned that you're doing that when you're saying that you're just off of sim. Yeah, 20 lots in ES, that's dangerous. It's too much. If you are doing your live trading for the first time, the most I would go is 5 contracts. And probably it's more likely 2 or 3 contracts. I mean, like there's an advantage to only trading 1 contract too, but if you really wanted to trade multiple contracts and kind of have multiple targets, then you can do 2 or 3. But 10, And yeah, Uzi is also right that if you're trading a 20 lot in ES, where you're probably lying. Most retail traders don't get that far. The 10-year, yeah, I don't know. So I've come in here with my sim and kind of done things where I'm like, I put on multiple contracts, and even when I'm doing stuff that I feel like is a little degenerate, I'm keeping my winners and losers within $1,000. So like, yeah, I don't believe you. I would need to see broker statements before I believe that one. But yeah, so this just kind of goes back into this thing that like scaling is not the way that people think it is, right? Your orders have a much stronger impact on markets than people think. And a lot of retail traders will find that once they get over a certain number of contracts, the thing that they were trading like no longer works because it's just not scalable. And they reach that point much faster than they thought they would. Yeah. Yeah, I like the No BS Day Trading basic course. I'd highly recommend it. It's a good read, and I like the guy. I haven't looked up on John Grady in a while. I don't want to say that like, because I have my own content, he has his own content. I don't keep track of everything that he says to be like endorse everything that he says or anything. but he's been doing this a long time. He has a lot of good insights. Kind of always have to put that addendum on there because I'm always really, I'm always a little nervous about like endorsing something, right? Okay, they are now pushing the upper side of this. And the volume kind of reverted. So, like, on one hand, if I really believe in the short, this might be a great place to do it, to try and get long at 401.0 here. But the action kind of suggests that we're just in a dead market. Do you recommend this? What do you mean this market? Oh, thin markets. Sorry. Do you recommend thin markets if you're trying to get volatility? So the thinner the market is, usually the more volatility you get. The most volatile markets are likely going to be your NASDAQ and oil. Yeah. Trading thin markets is really hard. It's a very advanced, it's a different game. I wouldn't recommend starting with a thin market. I would probably recommend trading for a few months on ZN and getting hang of that, and then if you really want to do a thin market, you can go and get into that. But I think that most people end up trading the thin market for the wrong reason. I think that the reason that people trade the thin market is because they think it has the greatest profit potential, right? Moves the most, like they go and they say, okay, here's how much margin I have. If I go and I trade that, how much would I make on average in a day, right? That will make it easier for me to turn this into my day job, yada, yada, yada. And then, it always comes out to be NASDAQ. And so they go and they trade the NASDAQ instead of thinking, okay, what are the edges that I have, right? What sort of advantages do I have? And picking an instrument that, or maybe not advantages that I have, but advantages that I want to have, right? And then you go and you pick an instrument that's the most suited to that, right? And I think that if you did that a lot more people would come down on trading the treasury. But instead they go for the big mover. And it's kind of like, okay, are you super fast? Well, you're not a robot. Okay, so you're not going to have that advantage over in the NASDAQ. And that's like one of the, if I was doing algorithmic trading and I thought that I had a really good connection to the exchange and all of these other things, then maybe it would make sense to trade NASDAQ, right? Am I able to correlate everything that's going on in all of the individual NASDAQ stocks to figure out whether, whether the current futures price is high or low and what the flows might be going in that stock market to buy or sell? It's hard, right? It's hard to do in the index futures. Where's the edge going to come from, right? But see, most people are thinking about edge from their perspective of there's going to be some pattern and eventually I'm going to find this pattern and just keep trading the pattern. And well, okay, just pretend that the patterns don't exist. I mean, it's a more complicated subject than that, but just pretend the patterns don't exist. How are you going to gain an edge in that instrument, right? In the treasuries, I can know a lot about the Federal Reserve, what their thinking is, read all of the market analysis, and have a really good picture of what all of the different flows in the market are at that time. And so I'm able to build an informational advantage in the treasuries in a way that is very difficult to do in other markets. And that's why I trade the treasuries. If I used to work for an oil company and I knew a lot about the oil market and the potential supply and demand in the oil market, then maybe I would trade oil instead. Well, I'm going to reset things here. Is it easier to spoof? What do you mean by, what does that mean? Germany spends big on TSMC plant. Yeah, I have to rephrase your question. So part of me wants to go short here, but I'm still getting that like we're in a tight market sort of a thing. And there was enough volume in that long that I have to question whether the short really makes sense. Someone in Florida won the 1.58 billion Mega Millions jackpot. Well, look, it's moved away from the 01 and you have 5 ticks, so maybe that was the right trade. Is it easier to spoof in thinner markets? I don't know about that one. Well, so the markets that were the most notorious for spoofing were like the metal markets, right? There was, I think it was JP Morgan traders that were the ones that got slammed for doing that, that got prosecuted for doing that. They were doing it in the metals, right? But I also kind of think that because the liquidity is thin, that they might not care as much about a really big order. I don't know. It would also, spoofing would be more risky in a thin market, to be honest, right? Because you could come out like let's open up a I really want to take a trade here, but I don't think that I really should. So I will come over here and pull up something like NQ. Let's do NQ because that one's so crazy. Okay. So like I can come over here to NQ and I can put like 10, you know, the most depth that you see at any one price is like 10 contracts, right? So if I went out there and I put a 10 out there somewhere, right? Like right on the offer, well, okay. It would be a spoof and it would be a significant thing and maybe they react to it. But if they don't react to it and they decide to buy through it and you get filled, like that's kind of not so cool, right? So I actually think it would be safer to spoof on a thicker market like the Treasury. Because if you go and you put a big lot, you know, if you put 5,000 contracts on at 12 right now, you know, the chances of them filling it before you're able to pull it are pretty low. But I also don't feel that the spoofing in the markets is really a very effective strategy anymore either. Because number one, the market kind of started to get used to it. And number two, the SEC started, and CFTC started enforcing against it, right? So EdgeClear has a tool in their depth that shows the block trades. You have to define block trades. You mean that it will show the block trades that you can get from like the CME block trades tool? You know how it is live action, right? You got to be like really specific because people use those terms in different ways and stuff. They all get abused for marketing purposes. Divides the large sitting orders from the small ones. Is that just it shows you MBO data? Are you saying it's showing you the MBO stuff? Yeah. I'm still back at somebody proved to me that it's worth it to pay the extra $100 to see that. Extra $100 a month to see that. Oh, sure. Well, of course we're going to like it, but that doesn't mean that it makes us money. How would we prove that that extra informational content actually assists our trading? Right? We would have to show some sort of stylized behavior that related to those large orders in order to justify factoring it into our analysis, right? I still think that the ability to see orders converting into stops, that seems to me to be an area of potential research, and I haven't seen anybody go into it. How long on the sim do you think until you're ready to trade crude or NASDAQ? Well, so I think that you want to spend, like, if I was gonna just, it depends on the person and your edges and everything, right? But if I was forced to try and create a generalized plan for people, I would say come in and trade ZN for on sim at least a month, if not 6 months, and then trade ZN live for a month or two until you feel really comfortable with doing that. Then, if you have an edge that you think is effective with equity indexes, then I would go and start trading ES. Test the edge over there, and then if you're really doing well and everything, you could graduate to NQ. Hedge fund owner told me many years ago that 6 years is the average before you have a grip on trading. Yeah, ZN is good to trade. I mean, there's a reason why ZN has the most liquidity. ZN, retail traders don't know it, but the secret is that ZN is the star on the exchange. What happens over here on ZN percolates to all other markets. And that's one of the best kept secrets in trading. How important the 10-year treasury futures are. Is there a difference between rhythmic demo and live? I'm sure there are, but I don't really know what they're. I mean, I think one of the things is probably the instruments that they make available to you on Rhythmic Demo are probably different. The Rhythmic Demo data is probably not as reliable, because sometimes they might switch their resources from doing the demo and switch them over to the live to try and handle more traffic when things are getting dicey on live. But I do feel, to Live Action's comment, I feel that to really understand what you're doing, to like really understand analyzing the markets, that it takes many, many years. And that's if you actually have the correct guidance, right? Most retail traders, they come in and they're trying to trade technical analysis price action off of a chart. And so they're wasting years and years and years learning nothing, right? But in terms of like understanding all of the particular nuances about a particular market, like the treasury market, yeah, it takes many years. You started trading order flow at 8. Okay, so what is the purpose of that question? I think that if you're 18, you should try to go to school and get hired by a big institution out of school. That would be the real gig, right? I have a friend who's been at it for 20 years and still doesn't get it yet. It's just like, okay, they're coming back up to those highs again. So it's still kind of giving me this market maker's gonna market make kind of feel to it. But we did move up about 4,000 contracts along, and we're at the high of the range. So I'm still to the point of, I think I would favor going short, but the market orders don't really support it. I don't know. The reason I'm a little triggered by Saf's question there is that I really do not believe that futures trading is a very good wealth builder. A lot of people, there's a really large segment of people who they're really young and they're looking for a way to get more income, essentially, right? And so they turn to futures trading as okay, this is something that I can do and really focus in on, that I would be able to make money with. And the problem with that is that if you don't have very much money to begin with in the futures trading, you're probably not going to make very much with it. And the amount of risk that you're playing with is just so much that for the vast majority of retail traders, it is a net loss. And so, what happens? You're 19 and then you say, I want to do futures trading. So you come in and you start, trading order flow every day, and you do that for 5 years, right? Well, guess what? You just blew some of the most productive years of your life. Okay. Where you could have gone to a university, gotten into a good finance program, tried to get hired by a big Wall Street firm or institution. Because I tell you what, you're gonna make a heck of a lot more money trading order flow for Goldman Sachs than you are trading order flow on your own account when you're starting from nothing, right? Now, if you're rich, the kind of person that I think is best suited to my channel and what we do and so forth is somebody that already has cash, right? They're already fully contributing to their IRA, and they still have money left over to trade with, right? Or you anticipate that at some point in the future that will be you, right? Because you could be a kid, you could start practicing the order flow and stuff with the anticipation that when you're in your mid 30s, you'll be making enough money to be able to put the risk in, right? But you have another career that you believe will bring you opportunity, right? So it's just not a very good wealth builder. It's a very good wealth enhancer. Now why is that? Well, because the large amounts of leverage that you get with futures trading means that you can diversify your wealth without having to put a whole lot into it, right? So, if you understand commodities trading and you're a millionaire and you put like just 5% of your wealth into commodities trading, right? Well, that 5%, if it takes off, can be huge and will make you into a multimillionaire. And if it doesn't go off, then it's fine. No big deal. Right? That's where futures kind of starts to become like a really powerful tool, but only for people that already have the tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to really, really play the game in the most optimal way, right? But most people are not going to make money with the futures, even with all of the best information. It's a competitive game, so the majority of people are going to lose, right? And I don't think it is a good idea to bank, the most productive years of your life on futures trading, right? I think that futures trading is, at that point, futures trading should be a hobby, and you'll focus on getting a real career. Futures trading is much more suitable for people that have the ability to take on extra risk. And if you're a kid just coming out of school and you don't have a job or any kind of career, that's not you. Okay, so that long actually extended quite a bit. So I was kind of thinking about 4010, but I said the volume doesn't seem to support it. I'm glad I didn't, because that was another basis point that moved against us. And now the volume is very, very, very clearly to the long side. So if I were to take a trade, I almost think that I would have to, I would maybe want to see if it comes back to 4010 and then maybe, take the long trade in the treasuries or short trade in the micro yields instead. Some people just don't want to respond to a boss, and that is fine. Well, so even if you don't want to respond to a boss, I don't think that futures trading is the way to get out of it. Right? You hate having a boss. Starting your own company building chairs is a better idea. Okay, so here's the problem that I have with that, okay? It takes a certain kind of person to be successful on your own, being your own boss, being an entrepreneur. And if working in a day job where reporting to a boss really, really irks you, you might not be that kind of person anyways. You know what I mean? Like I find something that will happen is if you got an ADHD person and they're kind of defiant personality type, because that can kind of happen, is you can become chronically defiant, and just anytime that anybody tells you to do something, you don't want to do it, right? And those types of people tend to end up going off on their own and trying to be entrepreneurs. But the issue is that they're not very good at it, at least not at first. And so I have seen people that are successful with that, but like it takes them a ton of trial and error and stuff, you know? Like they don't start out being really suited to that, and they only become suited through a lifetime of it, right? Of course, everybody is going to be not suited to being an entrepreneur at first, but some people are better suited to it than others. And I remember telling a girl who quit working for us years ago to start her own thing, if you hated working for us, you're going to fail miserably on your own. And she sure did in less than a year. Yeah. But that's the thing, Lucas, is like, okay, how do I approach this? Working sucks in general, okay? Like, because work, what makes it work is you're doing something that you wouldn't otherwise do unless you could make money from it. Generally speaking, that's why things are work, okay? If we lived in some sort of a utopia where all resources were completely abundant and we all had our own personal replicator that could replicate anything that we want with zero costs, right? Okay. Then there would be then there would only be hobbies, right? But there would be this whole array of things that like nobody does because they don't want to do them, and that's work. That's why we pay people to do things. That's why we have like an economy and stuff like that, right? Okay. But part of becoming an adult is learning to love work. Part of becoming an adult is understanding that there are certain things in the world that need to be done. Part of being an adult is understanding that you have to do things that you don't necessarily want to do. And the transformation is understanding that that's what your role is and embracing it and learning to love it. Right? And if you don't have the ability to go into a regular job and learn to love the job that you have, then you're probably not going to work and be dedicated enough to be successful at day trading. You get what I mean? Right? Because it's that ability to kind of transform yourself around a goal and putting everything into that goal, even when it isn't fun. Because futures trading you're going to have hard times that it's not fun. This is why the vast majority of retail traders give up before even a year, right? It's not because they don't, they don't have that tenacity. They're not able to stick with it when it's not fun. You get what I mean? I think this is an important topic because the thing that I think that millennials kind of screwed up on is that it's like, well, if I don't enjoy it, then I'm just not going to do it. And you ended up with this generation of people that are perpetual kids. Okay. Like having a relationship. Yeah, there's really great things about being in a relationship and really great things about having kids. Okay. But it's not always fun. Okay. Every marriage will have difficulties along the way. If it's not interpersonal difficulties, you're going to have other challenges, like there are natural disasters and things that will happen, financial challenges, right? that suck and are harder when you're in a relationship, right? And you get these millennials, when those sorts of things come along, they just go, oh, okay, I guess I'm just gonna get divorced then. Right? And they don't embrace the commitment that you've made and stick with it and make it work, right? Because it's not always gonna work, and when it's not working, you rely on discipline and you make it work, and you get it to the point where you enjoy it, right? But millennials don't do that. They just give up. Some of them to the point that they never even get to the married stage. But that's really what I feel like it is it's a generation of children. Nothing is really fun if you want to do at a high level, there's at some point it's going to stop being fun, right? You know, I really enjoy weightlifting, but if I wanted to be well, first of all, I couldn't become, a top level Olympic weightlifter. But if I really did want to become a top level Olympic weightlifter, I would have to work out 2 times. It wouldn't be fun. Okay. But I can do it on a lower level and have fun with it, right? And it's the same thing with trading too. You can scale back and you can trade in small amounts so that it just stays fun. You don't seem to acknowledge the levels of incompetence at positions of leadership. Well, let me tell you what, Lucas. If it really bothers you when people above you are incompetent, just wait until you're in charge and it's your employees that are incompetent, okay? It's not the gateway away from your problems that everybody thinks it is. Being your own boss is just more responsibility. It's more troubles. It's more. And trading, it's this. Well, okay, trading. If you go into trading because then you feel like you don't have to deal with people. First of all, being able to deal with people and understand people will make you a better trader, right? But then you have to deal with all of the inconsistencies with the income, right? You're trading one problem for another problem, right? You're trading not having to deal with people for inconsistent income and constantly living on the edge. Uzi's like, am I the only person here who actually employs? I probably Uzi. So did you hear me when I was talking about that yesterday? That I would like to get to the point where I have employees. That is something that I want to do, that I think would, help me develop and get to the next level. But I almost kind of feel like that I've slept on it too long, Life is serious because we do not know exactly where. Well, I feel like I know where I came from and where I'm going, but that doesn't get around the original point though, which is that futures trading is not a very effective wealth builder. Right? So you're still going to need to have some other career that you build income with that will get you to the point where you have enough income to really start making a lot of money from the futures trading side, right? And how are you going to get to that level without embracing the work and embracing people and all of these other things, right? well, you don't build wealth from being an employee. It's a stepping stone. I don't know what to tell you, Lucas. I'm doing pretty damn good from being an employee. So let me try and frame it in a different way, right? In order to really build like generational wealth, let's call it, okay? You have to have the ability to take on risk, right? Now, if whether or not the next trade works out for you determines whether you pay your rent that month, then you're not able to really take on a whole lot of risk, right? Yeah, I don't take on very much risk with it. You're right. I don't. At some point, I think I will size up, but not today. But that's because I'm saving it into other places first. So there was a point where I thought like, okay, at the end of the summer, I'm just gonna like start sizing up big. But I am saving up a lot of money, and my intention with the personal money that I'm saving up is to go into some more of a fund strategy sort of a thing. And I'm keeping the futures trading like limited to the channel, right? So, I don't know. I have a little bit of a wad saved up. I think I have like $1,000 saved up from the income that's come through the channel, which seems like a lot, but it's not a lot, right? Like you can't live off of it, but YouTube does make some money. And I don't really feel like there's any other pieces of equipment. I guess I mentioned earlier I kind of want a different audio interface and a different a different video interface. Okay, but those are small ones, right? Yeah, I guess I could put a big wad into my account and size up. But then I will be like trading like 2 or 3 contracts, not like, you know, getting super huge until I've built that account up. Right? But I'm kind of shifting around now because what's happened is, you know, I think one of the biggest advantages to futures trading is what you learn in the process of doing it, right? And I'm getting to the point now where, you know, I can just kind of leapfrog. I can move over into taking other kinds of risks that people are often kept out of, right? It's going to be hard though, because if I'm going to like manage money, you know, I'm going to need to build connections and stuff. I don't feel like I have a very good local network. The people in Utah aren't, you know, like the kind of person that I know to look for. They're not here. And I'm sure that there are people that I'm going to meet in the future that are going to come into my life that they will change that and help me build out that network. But I have no clue where it's going to come from. Okay, we're having this discussion with a friend of my wife over the weekend. Her friend and her boyfriend have a higher household income than we do, but they live in an apartment. We own a home, and I have a WAD / portfolio that's roughly 60 times larger than hers. It ain't what you do, it's what you do with it. She always says to my wife, "You never take vacations. We work for ourselves. We make our own schedules. We're always on vacation. I don't need to blow $2,500 for a week." Yeah, that's exactly what I am like too. It's like, okay, so like, you get to the point where you have thousands of dollars a month in discretionary income, and what do you do with it, right? Are you putting it into your IRA and contributing $6,500 a year to your IRA? Most people don't do that. I don't know why, but for some reason, most people don't do that. In fact, my understanding is that most people don't even max out their employer's contribution match to their 401k. What the heck? That one's just like a no-brainer. But there's a large contingent of people out there that don't contribute anything to their. I was always taught you save 10%. 10% to God, 10% to yourself. So yes, you can, if you, especially if you're single. Let me tell you what. If I had stayed single, I'd probably already be a millionaire. But, oh well. I did the thing and I'm glad I did it. Because I wouldn't, my ceiling is higher now. My ceiling is higher now. Like in all honesty, my ceiling, if I make the right choice, if I make the right steps, could be billionaire. Could be. I don't think that that's actually where I'm headed. I don't know if I want to lose myself in it that hard. But I think some of the opportunities that are in front of us could be billionaire types of opportunities. 100K a day. Yeah. Well, so in terms of like, what will you make from day trading? Okay. Keep in mind that when Anthony Crudele was like the one of, if not the largest trader on the Globex, right when electronic trading started and before the robots came in and dethroned him. Okay. His top year, he made $1 million in a year. Okay. So just to kind of like, okay, if you want to become a multimillionaire, it's going to need to come from places other than just day trading, right? But again, it's a really great wealth enhancer because of how it diversifies you and the margin. Contribute just shy of 8K a year to your portfolio. So I'm having a hard time. So with my new job, something that I find a little bit frustrating is that they're on a bi-weekly payment schedule. You know what I'm talking about? So like I get paid every 2 weeks instead of getting paid like on the 15th and the end of the month like it was before. So like sorting out when so it used to be that'd be like, okay, how much do I have in the account? When do I get paid next? And I could very quickly determine, do I have the cash in the account to do this thing or that thing, right? And now it's like it's not. So I really want to dump a whole bunch of money into some of my accounts, but I've only just been putting in what I have scheduled in my budget because it's so hard for me to figure out where I'm at on the monthly budget. I mean, I'm using Mint and everything, but it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to manage is what it's turning into. Because I'm looking to contribute like maybe I don't know if I should really actually tell you guys like actual numbers. I'm looking to save 7 figures outside of my tax advantaged accounts a year. Did you show you? I don't remember you showing me the whole thing. I don't know. Well, it's not. I don't even know why I'm not supposed to. I can't recall. It might be a bad idea, but it's not because I don't want to intimidate people. But Well, so for the treasuries here, remember I said, well, maybe the play now is to wait for them to come back to 4010, and then maybe the play is to go long from there? Well, they did it. I would say that that extension that they had off the highs was a little bit more than I anticipated. Even though I mentioned the possibility of them coming back to that spot, I wasn't really being serious. I that was kind of like a pie in the sky kind of a scenario. But now that it's there and I'm looking at the time, I'm wondering if it's really worth trying to play it or not. Because this action is a little weird to me. This still looks to me like a quiet market where the market maker is in control. And so from that perspective, it's very difficult for me to really know if the orders will continue to come in long or not. And they are likely to continue just staying pretty tight like this because of CPI tomorrow, right? Anyways, if I was going to start a hedge fund, seems to me like I would want like 100K. So that's my goal. I think that I could save up 100K over 5 years. That's my goal. And yeah, the YouTube channel might help with that too. We'll see. You know, even though I haven't released, the beginning of the year did really good, and then I had a long break where I didn't release any videos. I have one video that I got to do for next week. Not for next week, but for next month, because somebody sent me out a product to review. It's a docking station. It's a pretty cool docking station, but I've had a bunch of people come to me and, you know, hey, you want to do this product at a time? I was kind of like, no, not really. But this one, it seemed like for those of you trading off of a laptop, that this would be a valuable addition to your setup. So I decided to review it for him. And then I got to do the smart money concepts video. But you know, the number of videos that I have on my mind and that I want to get through, it's not as much, right? That like the release schedule has really slowed down this year, but the channel is still doing as well as it ever has. So, you know, maybe I never have to actually do anything. I've always been like, oh, you make this one change. Maybe I don't have to do anything. Maybe I need to just keep doing what I'm doing and making the videos that I want, and eventually it'll pop off on its own or something. I've been thinking long about this and came to the conclusion that no one that is serious actually needs to trade from a laptop. Well, okay, so I do not think that it is a good idea to say, I want to have a trading laptop so that I can go to Cancun and trade from Cancun or something like that. Yeah, I totally agree with you. But everybody needs a computer of some sort, right? And the laptop form factor makes sense for a large group of people. And as long as it's a laptop that's really built for multimedia applications, you can trade from a laptop and it will be just as good as your PC, you know? And like, honestly, I'm not does the PC really make sense if you're not gaming or programming or editing with it? Does the laptop really does the desktop really make sense? I don't know if it does. But from the stats and everything that I get, a really big portion of the audience is doing this from a laptop. So. Well, no, because you can still unplug the lap. So the thing that I'm talking about is a what do we call this? A docking station, right? So one plug, you plug it in, and then your laptop is connected to 3 monitors, right? And then if you need to take it somewhere, you just unplug it. Right. You know, I'm doing pretty high level tech stuff, and they give us laptops. You know? Well, because the laptop. So what if I wanted to do something with my computer that is not trading? Okay, because if that's your one computer, you're probably going to use it for things other than trading. And that's where, for most people, right? Because think about it, like, you have a desktop, you have to have a room to put it in, and a table, and the whole setup, and the whole kit, and everything, right? This is just, most people don't have that. Yeah. Not most people. Well, yeah. On a whole, most people. But I think when, let's see if I can find. I'm pretty sure that the analytics show this. Yeah, and then on top of that, there's like the small form factor ones. You're totally right. Maybe it doesn't. I thought that YouTube Analytics gave you a little bit of information about what platform they were coming from, whether they were on a phone or a laptop or a desktop, but I don't see that anymore. There's age and gender. Anyways, there's a lot of people are trading from laptops. I use two, one for Jigsaw and one for Sierra, just in case I have to evacuate for the effing hurricane. Yeah, I don't know. Like honestly, if you're not going to be doing something that is like video card intensive, like playing games or video editing, I don't see why you would buy a desktop computer. I just don't see why. Like, if all you're going to use the computer for is like just forget about trading, right? Like, let's say we're taking somebody that hasn't started trading yet. So like, what is the average person, right? What is the average person going to use their computer for? Like browsing Facebook? You can do that from your phone, right? But for work, yeah, a lot of people have a laptop for work, for instance. The most corporates will give you a laptop, not a desktop. You just have to be very careful about the kind of laptop that you get, because some laptops are geared more towards power saving and maximizing their battery life, and not towards multimedia and real-time response. And then those laptops are not very suitable for trading. You would buy a desktop because it is cheaper, has better performance, and is quieter. But that's not what most people do. It's just not. I think part of it stems from like most people, their first computer is when they're in school, when they're at university. And when you're in university, you definitely want to have a laptop, right? So you can take it around with you to all your classes. So I think that's kind of where you get pulled into it. And then from that point on, it's like, well, you know, when your laptop gets older, you just want to get a new laptop because you're used to using it in that way. You're used to being able to, yes, I can do it at my computer desk and put it into the docking station, but I can also take it over into the family room and watch, you know, sit there with my laptop and watch TV if I want. That's just how people use them. Because again, like to most people, like the performance and that it's quieter and stuff doesn't matter to them. It being cheaper would maybe matter, but like, I don't know, you're talking about people that are willing to shell out for a MacBook Pro, so. Is it still only 8:07, huh? Well, I had said maybe you buy 14. It was not like a serious trade, but it looks like it did play out kind of the way I suspected. I bet you that if I had actually tried taking it live, that it would have done the opposite, though. It's that kind of a market. Really seems to me like this is a really tight slog and that there's not a ton of interest in this market for whatever reason. Security and prices. China is facing a Japan-style period of deflation. Yeah, there is. So I haven't noticed a really huge iceberg, but I guess I haven't been paying that close attention. But there's definitely like the small icebergs all over the place, isn't there? That's my point. If you're serious about trading, you need a proper desk. I don't know. I don't know about that. I don't think that most people go out and buy a laptop and like a full setup from the very beginning just to trade. I think that most people start with what they have, and maybe as they trade more, they build it up over time to be more comfortable for them, right? I am like the abnormality, the type of person that has like the highest level desktop user requirements, which is what makes me a good candidate to review like the kind of like a docking station like this. I don't know if this docking station will really integrate into my setup. I don't have a docking station for this new laptop, but part of the advantage of this docking station is multiple sources, and my KVM switch does that better. So, but I will review it as though you're going to trade from the laptop. I don't know. But most people prefer to be mobile. I guess that's... I mean, it might not seem like that because of the way that society has gone since the pandemic, but I'm sure that given enough time, we'll get back to that point and people will value the flexibility of being mobile more again. Right? Of course, if you're looking to buy a machine to day trade with, I would absolutely recommend the desktop. But you know, and another thing is that a lot of these people are kids. A lot of these people, we're getting more people than it used to be that you never get anybody on this channel that was under the age of 30, right? But we're getting more and more people that are like teenagers, right? And that's kind of my thing, is like the number of people out there that have the existing wealth for futures trading to really be a worthwhile endeavor for them. You know, there's not, you're talking about a very select group of people, right? But there's this other larger group of people that they don't have the wealth now, but they will. Right? There are all of these professionals that, you know, they have a little bit of time. They would love to get more involved in the market, right? And you can trade small amounts, like you can trade micro futures, or you can trade on sim in anticipation that maybe 5-10 years from now, you'll have the income for it to make sense, right? And I think that a lot of those people are going to be doing it from a laptop. What would be a good starting account size for a noob? Well, so the first thing is I would recommend trading sim at the very beginning. So like you just do like the minimum account balance. I think on some brokers you can do $400 or $500, and you can just trade sim for several months doing that, right? Because the big thing with futures is you have to pay for the data fees and all these sorts of problems, right? Okay, but you can trade micro treasury yield futures, and you don't need to have a whole lot. And so I think that you could get started with micro treasury yield futures for $1,000. And if you're doing good with it, you kind of come like I am, where you'll pay for the data fees. Like you trade one contract and you're good at it, you can pay for the data fees and the commissions and everything. Am I wrong about this idea that you can make money from everywhere? And also, well, I mean, the reality of it is that everybody seems to already think that that's what it is, right? So there's not anything that we say that's going to make them more likely to think that, right? It's more everything that we can to help them understand that trading is not that, right? But it's just when it comes down to the practicality of it, a laptop makes sense for about, you know, of the potential audience that you have, I'm going to say that probably about 50% of them, it makes more sense for them to have a laptop. So poll. U.S. 10-year note yield has peaked in the current cycle, said 81% of strategists. They're jinxing it. They're jinxing it. Man, I really do hope that CPI tomorrow is not high. It shouldn't be. But I think I've been traumatized from this inflation cycle. I can't get over the fear that it's going to come back. Carl Quintilla, if the U.S. pulls off a minor miracle and soft lands the economy, then the recent inflation episode would be consistent with a shock to the price and wage level that took several years to pass through, just like at the end of World War II. I don't understand that, but okay. Where he's coming from that. Oh, no, wait. Here's this is more from Carl. There are 11 recessions in the post-war period against only 3 soft landings. Recently, however, we revised our outlook for the US in favor of the rare soft landing. Why would we do this if history suggests it's the least likely outcome? The right comparison is the World War II experience. Following the end of the war, the US experienced a massive shift in relative demand towards domestic goods and services. Shortages were in abundance, leading to a burst of inflation. Does this all sound familiar? Question mark, question mark. Yes, it does. Inflation rose to 14.4% and 7.7% in 1946 and 47 before falling 1% in 1947 and rising only 1.1% in 1948. If the US pulls off a minor miracle and soft lands the economy, then the recent inflation episode would be consistent with a shock to price and wage levels that took several years to pass through, just like at the end of World War II. Oh, okay. So their assertion is that it has more to do with this shock imbalance between supply and demand, and that takes a couple of years to resolve through, and then it's done and it's gone. I think the counter to that would be that it was driven by a large amount of fiscal support and is still being supported by a large amount of fiscal support. And that makes us very vulnerable to either a recession coming along and or another episode of inflation later on. Can you imagine, like right now, sentiment isn't very good. Right now, sentiment isn't very good. Many people are like, the economy still sucks. Nobody can afford houses, etc., etc., etc. Okay. The statistics suggest that people are doing better than they let on social media, although they have pulled back on spending in a big way in the past month. Okay. But the stats kind of suggest that people aren't actually doing as bad as like the sentiment suggests. But can you imagine what things will be like if there's a soft landing and the sentiment adjusts accordingly? Because like sentiment is really bad, and we've been seeing over the last month a pretty wild stock market, right? So that's why I believe that there's a really, that the risk of inflation coming back is something that we need to keep track of. There's something that we do need to be concerned about. And I think that just because we saw inflation come back here, people think that like it's all over, and I don't think that that's necessarily the case. It's good, and it's certainly good for the current conditions, but that does not necessarily mean that we won't have the resurgence. What's there? It's only 8 man. I feel like we just talked about like 5 different things in 20 minutes. What's with that? How's been the action during the afternoon? What do you mean by during the afternoon? I don't know. When you look at this one, it's an okay, reasonable move up, I guess, but when you look at the changing cumulative delta, you see, oh, this isn't a very active market. Well, I don't. After I leave, I don't really keep track of the markets that well. I watched it yesterday because I kind of still thought something was going on, but in the end, it just kind of fizzled out. There is often at 11:30 Eastern time a little bit of a shift because of the European close, but the treasuries are definitely not as active after that. Today we have that 10-year auction, so that could be interesting, right? But you can see here today, it's been going long, and if the auction is the only really major thing that we've got going on, it seems to me that what the market has been saying so far the past day is that the concerns about the increased supply were overblown and that the market has the ability to absorb it. Did you enter? Yeah, I created an account. That one, remember we went and we took one short and was like, let's just see what it does in a month. I think it's still short, so I don't know where was it short from? UB is 128.31. I think it was 130.31. I'm too lazy to go in and log into it, but I did. I don't know how seriously we'll take it, but I will try to the best of my ability. Just understand that, competitions are cool and everything, but it's not like the end all. There's, I'm going to trade a competition differently than how I'm going to trade my own account, right? Yes, it starts like a month from now. But if you sign up now, you can go in and you can like trade their sim. Or they have like a practice account. So I went and I put a short in the bond. How do you get a seat on the CME when you pay for it? And if you have the money, you can discuss that with your broker. If you have to ask me how to get a seat on a CME, though, getting a seat on the CME is probably not an appropriate move for you at this time. That's usually one of those ones that, like when you're ready for it, the broker will come to you. How's the new and used car market in the US? That kind of feels like that's coming out of left field. Spoos looks, yeah, it does. Yeah, well, so have you noticed this thing, Octavius? I think the E-mini has kind of been doing it, and the treasuries did it yesterday as well. Like yesterday, the treasuries, they came down, and it was like, oh, okay, maybe are they going to bust these lows now and like continue through? And they did bust through lows, but it was like heavy absorption against it. And then it will just kind of languish there. And like they might be able to push by another tick or two, but you don't get the stop run. It just kind of like hangs out down at the lows. And it's kind of a little eerie, It's like teetering right on the edge, but it never goes. And the E-mini has been doing the same sort of a thing. Is like in the morning, it will kind of go down. It'll look heavy. It'll go down to the lows. But it'll only push a little bit and then just kind of teeter there. And you don't ever get like the full on like dump. And then later on in the afternoon, they buy the dip. And it seems to me that the spoos are doing that again. Okay, so the new and used car market in the United States, there was for a time in 2022 because of the shortage of new chips. There was a shortage of cars, and so the both new and used car market prices skyrocketed considerably. And since that time, they have kind of been coming back. And as they have come back, a lot of dealerships have been having a hard time dealing with it. So The car market is kind of in a very unbalanced market, and it's unclear to me where that settles out when all is said and done. Yeah, it's like it's hard to find a decent deal. Like yeah. Basically, like the prices are bad and nobody wants to buy, and the dealers can't really give people cheaper prices because so much of their inventory was bought expensive. I don't know. If I was gonna buy a car this year, I would definitely be paying attention to the holiday season and see what they pull out, because they might try and compensate for it at the end of the year with sales, right? I think we're gonna pop a 19. Maybe. I mean, the volume has been to the long side by about 15,000 contracts. So dealerships have quote. I don't know how that works. Good question. But I think generally they have goals. I'm kind of interested to see how everything shakes out with Ford wanting to go direct to consumer. I'm not. I think that like when it was just Tesla direct to consumer, and because of the unique brand that Tesla has and unique position that they had in the market for a while, that it kind of made sense. Once you have other makers go to that model, I think things kind of get weird. I don't think that it will shake out the way that Ford thinks it will. You're still probably going to go to a car dealership to buy a used car, and most people do buy their cars used. So the only people that are going to be going to Ford to get to buy it directly from Ford are going to be the people looking to get brand new cars, maybe. That's like, I don't know if that's actually going to make that more attractive to that group of people that are dumb enough to buy a car brand new. It's not that they're dumb enough, but so it's a very select group of people that are like that. So I can't really predict how it will shake out, but the car industry is definitely going to go through a lot of change in the next 5 years, right? So hard to trade the last few days. Yeah. I mean, I made a big boo-boo yesterday. It was a much larger loss than I should have taken given the action of the day. But, I thought I had something, and I think that was just an error on my judgment. It's been hard. I did really good at the beginning of the summer. And my account balance has kind of been going sideways for the last 2 months, I think. Like I've gone through building it up and then losing and then building it back up and then losing again now in this range. I'm sure cars will be cheaper. Well, the issue is that the car dealerships, still have to make money, and they bought cars at certain prices. So that kind of limits what they can actually sell them for. They can only take so many losses on those, So, prices will take a long time to adjust back to reasonable levels, I think. It's going to be the same thing with the housing market. Like everybody expects that the housing market will crash and then all of a sudden housing will be affordable again and everything will be hunky-dory. No, it's not going to work out that way, because you all want to buy houses. And there's all of these people that did buy a house that, you know, they don't want to take a loss on their house. So they're going to stay in the house as long as they can. European natural gas prices explode 40% higher. Interesting. Oh, I do see today natural gas over here in the US is up 4.71%. That's the biggest winner on the day. And wheat is down 2.21%. I'd say it's been pretty quiet on Twitter this morning, too. I had this one from that I wanted to read. It's actually dumb if the SEC were to approve a spot Bitcoin ETF before enforcement agencies got rid of Binance and Tether. Think of it this way. The point of a spot Bitcoin ETF is to attract not only institutions that don't have flexible investment mandates, but more retail investors into Bitcoin. If the SEC approves ETFs before regulators destroy the criminal monopolies, then they get taken down after the ETF begins trading, prices implode, turning off both retail and institutions from the asset class altogether. In short, the SEC and BlackRock would be shooting themselves in the foot. Fingers would get pointed at the SEC and DOJ for not acting more aggressively and at BlackRock for effing over retail. If you're really for this game long term, you want Binance and Tether gone. I agree. Because I do not believe that they are responsible, honest actors. Yeah, it really has been a relatively quiet morning on the Twitter front as well. You know, there was a bit of dollar movement that I neglected to notice. The dollar a little bit lower today. Have you touched on the BRICS gold-backed currency? Yeah, well, I remember one that was... Okay, so I did see the new tax on Italian banks, and I saw that it really hurt their country, and the prime minister over there is having some issues, but I don't really know a whole lot of the context behind it. I've just kind of been like, okay, that's interesting. Did they backtrack? Yeah, on the gold-backed currency, you know, like I remember hearing about that and like nothing has happened. So I don't know. It kind of sounds like it's still like a pie in the sky sort of a thing. Like one of the issues was like, okay, they might work together and create a gold-backed currency, but that doesn't mean that they're going to get rid of their fiat currencies, right? But the bigger thing here is people get interested in the creation of a gold-backed currency because there's a contingent of conservatives out there that are still mad about Richard Nixon taking the U.S. off of the gold standard, right? That's really you talk about monetary economic theory and politics in the United States. That's the key thing that you got to understand, is that it was a Republican that decided to take the United States off the gold standard, and the conservatives never got over it. The conservatives think that we should still be on a gold standard. So the theory ends up being that eventually a gold-backed currency will pop up, and when that happens, all of the money will go to that, and the dollar will collapse or something like that, right? That eventually the dollar will collapse. The problem with this theory is that there are serious advantages to a fiat currency that allow us to have the modern economy that we have. We simply would not be able to sustain such a large economy in such a stable manner. Because like we have a huge economy, but the economy has also been very, very stable, relatively speaking. Like, yeah, we've had these financial crises and everything, and it seems like markets are really volatile, but they're very, very gentle compared to like what they were like in the 1800s, right? And a large part of that is because of the controls and so forth that we get with being able to control the money supply, right? So getting off of the gold standard was a financial innovation that helped economic growth. And if China, Russia, and other allies decided to move to a country that was pure, just gold, and they didn't have their own currencies on their own, it would be a huge detriment to them, actually, right? So number one, I don't think that you will see that. I don't think you'll see them move completely over to the currency. And two, I don't think that you'll see that currency overtake these other things, because the issue is all you got to do is have, one central bank decide to dump all of their gold, and then you're screwed, right? No, the fiat currency is not backed by politicians. The fiat currency is backed by the full faith and credit of the United States, which basically ends up being it's backed by the entire economy of the United States. Like, think about it. So you have a currency, and it's backed by gold. Okay, so then you say, well, if somebody comes out and sells a lot of gold on the open market, that hurts the price of gold, and that hurts the value of our currency, and it destroys our economy. And that's a real problem. That's the sort of thing that would happen in the 1800s, and that's also part of why Richard Nixon took us off of the gold standard. So then you say, oh, okay, so we don't want to be on a gold standard because gold is too much to manipulate. So what if we put ourselves on like a commodity basket instead? This basket that's like X% wheat and X% gold and all of these things. Well, you still kind of have this problem like you just saw recently with inflation, where all of the commodities go up at the same time or all of the commodities go down at the same time. And so you still have the same problem. So how do you get yourself sufficiently diversified to be able to deal with those problems? Well, number one is you can go for the maximum diversification, which is you can be backed by the entire economy, right? One. And then number two is you make the issuance of that currency that you can control it, that you can issue more or issue less based on the current conditions. And that's where we get to where we are today. Yeah, now the Italian prime minister is blaming the ECB for raising interest rates in the past year. Well, what I don't understand is like, did the banks make like some sort of windfall profit from all of this? Because when I look at the banks in the United States, they're not, they're doing okay, but they're not the biggest winners, like they're just kind of in line with the rest of the market. So it definitely sounds like somebody made a political misstep. I don't know. When you have to resort to blaming things on the Federal Reserve, you probably goofed up somewhere, right? Somebody goofed up somewhere. What economy? You keep getting into more debt for which, well, yeah, but why wouldn't it be that way? It's like, so back up again, right? If there was no such thing as debt, you wouldn't be able to have the economy that you have today. Okay? people don't have enough money offhand to be able to buy a house, for instance, right? In order to buy a house, you have to have debt. Okay, so if we have no debt, well, people would have to have somewhere to live, but they wouldn't be nearly as nice as they are today, would they? Same with cars, right? Like the reality is that what people want to do and what people need to do will always be bigger than the current amount of capital that they have available at that time. That's always going to be the case. That's just like the nature of ideas, right? You will always have more ideas than you have the ability to actually implement, right? You will always have more ideas than you have the ability to fund. I know that sounds crazy, but I'm telling you, when the money comes, all of a sudden the idea, the opportunities to put the money to work at something will materialize. It does, right? You will always have the need for greater capital. And so in order for us to grow, we have to borrow against the future. There's literally no choice. It's why it runs out that way. Like when you started with banking, right? It kind of started like, oh, we'll hold the gold and then we'll give you a note, right? And what always happens is they end up printing more notes than they actually have gold for. And why is that? It's because they need it. This is because the capital needs of that economy is always greater than the current resources available. That's why we take it through debt. Right? So it should always be the case that the US economy is in debt and that the amount of that debt is increasing. It's just that the percentage of that debt as a percentage of GDP needs to stay within a reasonable range. And it is too high right now, right? But if we continue to grow, and I think there's a couple of things that kind of suggest that there's still a lot of growth to come through in the economy in our lifetimes, those things should even out. You will always have debt. It's a necessary part of a modern growing economy. You're never going to get rid of it. Well, acknowledge all the problems that the contemporary economy has because it doesn't come without its side effects. Well, I think that the side effects that you are talking about really aren't so much to do with a fiat currency and a Federal Reserve as much as they are a completely irresponsible Congress, right? And this is the thing that just drives me crazy, is that the conservatives want to blame everything on the Federal Reserve when it's always the politicians, and frankly, their own politicians, that are the problem. And really what needs to happen, because again, I heard this comment the other day that as you move up the corporate ladder, you have to think about different things. And when you're at the executive level, really what you're thinking about is systems. Instead of thinking about people, you're thinking about systems, right? We have a system about how we spend our money in Congress that is hopelessly broken. It is just hopelessly broken because the politicians have every incentive to spend as much money as they can, and they do not spend it wisely. There are problems with the Federal Reserve too, but that's like a different set of things, which is our ability to know what's going on and to react appropriately and so forth, and to be able to do so in a timely manner. It's kind of difficult, but that's kind of one of those things where it's like, well, it's better than what we had before and we can deal with those problems. Problem with Congress is unsustainable. That's going to blow up if you don't do something about it in the next 20 years. Let's see here. So Francesco's still talking about the Italy thing. Financial literacy here is terrible, so I wouldn't be surprised if it actually works out good for the right. Greedflation has become a very popular term for a while when they started Whoa. So you're saying that in Italy, it is conservative people that are saying that there is greedflation? That's funny. That's funny. Yeah. You heard the term greedflation? Every leftist economist in the last 2 years have been complaining about greedflation, right? Like really when you unpack it within the context of what we know about a modern economy and inflation, the term greedflation is really like a cope. That's really what it is it's a cope. It's like, okay, the government comes and prints a ton of money and gives it to people so that they can spend it on goods. They do so, and it works so well that there aren't enough goods to go around, and so the prices of everything goes up. Right? That's what literally happened. You go into all of the numbers. Demand increased. The amount of imports in the United States increased, right? And it was that surge of demand that created the supply chain bottlenecks and created this whole problem that we have. And created inflation, okay? So, and what is the liberals' response to this? Oh, well, when that happens, companies should just not increase their prices. That's really what it all comes down to, is like, oh, we created this economic environment that drives inflation because of the increased demand, but we don't have to have inflation if everybody agrees to just not increase prices. And it's the most ridiculous thing, because those companies, every incentive that they have is to raise prices. Because number one, they're going to try and make as much money as they can anyways, okay? But even if we took that part away, because that's the part that they would say is the greed, even if you take that part away, prices are still going to rise. They literally have to do it. Because if they don't raise the prices, then they're just going to run out of inventory. Now you have this period of time where you're not selling anything because you don't have any inventory. That's not good for business, right? If you don't increase the prices, you get screwed later on down the line, because basically what you have to do is like make the money now so that when the demand, comes back and the interest rates go up and everything and the economy is tough, like it was in 2022, you're able to survive through 2022, right? Because if you don't do that, and you don't have those reserves and everything, then you're screwed, right? So every incentive about this dynamic is that the company should raise prices, right? And what they're saying is that, like, oh, you can just choose not to do it. Well, like, no, that's not how things work, right? Oh, this just comes back to this thing that I see about liberal ideology over and over and over and over again, is that it's all theoretical. They think that it's like we sit down and it's all theoretical and it's all in their head. It's like they think, I can decide this is the way that things should be, and if everybody else agrees with me and we all think that's correct, and then we'll just act on it and it will be reality, right? But that's not really how people actually work. People will do what their subconscious mind thinks is best for them. So really what drives behavior is incentives. And what the left does over and over again is creates perverse incentives in systems and then complains when those incentives go awry and cause problems. So yes, that's what greedflation is, basically. That doesn't matter where you go. Politicians always use the same tools of manipulation to deceive people. Yeah, sure. Like if there was inflation and it was your fault because of your government policy, then of course, if you want to stay in power, you're going to do everything that you can to convince people that it wasn't your fault, right? Well, that's the liberal way of approaching it, right? So, like, here's the thing. If I was a politician, okay, and my policy had inadvertently created inflation, I would just ignore it. I would just ignore it. And I would position myself in a way that the policies that I am promoting at that time are beneficial for the greatest number of people. I mean, if I'm a psychopath and I'm trying to get elected, that's what you do, right? You offer people more goodies, right? So Joe Biden's actually doing an okay job at this because he's continuing to promise the kids that he's going to pay for their college, for instance, right? So those people, if you are, between the ages of well, your voting age is 19, right? So if you're between the ages of 19 and 30, right? Like you're really, really likely to vote for Biden because you probably have student debt, and it would be objectively good for you if your student debt was paid for. That's, a couple tens of thousands of dollars more money in your pocket. Of course you're going to vote for it. And I know many kids that there's nothing liberal about them at all. They don't like anything about Joe Biden at all, and they're voting for him just for that. Right? That's politics. And that's kind of the problematic thing about the system that we have that we really need to solve. Did I ever see this thing Warren Buffett said about it? He's like, oh, I can solve the deficit. Just say that if at the end of the fiscal year the budget is not balanced, then all current sitting members of Congress are no longer eligible for re-election, and that would solve the problem. Yeah, probably. Because what you have to do is you have to introduce an incentive that incentivizes the politicians to act responsibly. Is that, do you think level 2? No. So what they call level 2 in stocks, which is like being able to see the current best bid, best offer of various market makers out there, doesn't really do the same thing. What you need is you need to see the depth of market. Now, their NASDAQ does have like full depth of market, and there are data providers out there providing it, such as a DX feed, which we made a video with. They gave us access to their platform, and we made a video about it. And I think that it shows that order flow on stocks can be a very powerful tool. Yeah, yes, but guess who are the ones that would make these types of laws? The same politicians who don't have the incentives to do so. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's still possible to get something done. I don't think that you'd be able to get that specific law passed ever for sure, but I still have hope that the politicians can get their act together and fix this and create a system that incentivizes them to do the right thing. Because at some point they have to, because if they don't, the whole thing collapses, right? So they might try and keep the charade running until the very last second, and you might misjudge it and like suddenly find that it's already gone too far. But at some point they have to address it. So, and that's the whole thing, is that a politician will try and punt on the hard decision if they can. But some things you just can't punt on. Sometimes you get to the end of the game and you need another touchdown and you have to do an onside kick, right? How can you see? Yeah, Walter, go and watch my video about DX feed and you'll see it. It totally works, and it's just like this. Of course, you're seeing only the depth of market for the NASDAQ, but gets the job done. You see the market orders, you can sign the orders, and you can see things going on in stocks that were quite shocking to see. That like how the orders were tricking out the retail traders. And I had seen it we watched it on big market moves, like top stocks, to see a situation I don't remember which stock it was that I looked at, but there was a situation where a stock had recently popped off, and you saw all of these retail traders diving into it, and all their charts and stuff were saying to go long. And when you looked at the order flows, you could see that all of the insiders were passively selling the whole time. What was the name? You would just see it's DX feed. I think that DX feed is in the title. I mean, you'll when you see it, it'll be like, oh, right. You come to my channel, you click videos, right, and you scroll down. Order flow for stocks. Can't miss it. DX feed, full depth of market order flow for stocks in NinjaTrader 8. Copy. And there's the video. And I was even able to get it to work through like NinjaTrader and then pass it on to the bridge so that I could see it on my Jigsaw DOM and use the tick aggregation with the Jigsaw DOM and read the order flow and stocks. And it looked very effective to me. The instances that I looked at, I was seeing the stylized behavior and order flow that were showing you very clear signals about what was happening in the market that retail traders were completely missing and got screwed over on. Yeah, time to wrap it up. Thank you. Well, as we're doing so, the E-mini is kind of falling down here, isn't it? So, we're still quite a good clip above where we were yesterday. So like the top of the kind of the distribution area yesterday in stocks was around 44.90. This is actually one of those instances where the point of control is not actually at the close. Can you see that? Because the close is over here. They almost did it, but there was actually more trade down here at the lows of the day where there was, you know, I guess people accumulating some contracts. So they may be making a move for that. So I don't know if the move we're seeing in ES is a huge deal yet. But the thing that I would want to warn you about is that the market has entered into a possibly negative gamma regime, which means that there are certain levels on the downside, and I'm not entirely sure where they are, but probably below yesterday's low would be a good place to start, where the gamma like really turns negative, and crossing those spots will probably trigger more volume as people sell to hedge their positions. Okay. Is a Mac valid for trading? Totally. And even a MacBook Air would probably be fine. Kind of depends on your platform, because your platform might not be compatible with Mac, and the platforms that are compatible with Mac are not the best ones. But what you can do is you can just run a dual boot, right? I think that you can you run dual boot on M2 processors? No, Boot Camp is not supported on the Macs with M1, M2 processors. Gotcha. Oh no, I think that like performance wise that those M2 Macs would probably be the best performing. Right. So Windows kind of has an odd and interesting relationship with like multimedia. Apple has the best multimedia stuff. Okay. It used to be for a long time, if you were doing music production, you were doing video editing, you did it on a Mac. Now it's more 50-50. Okay. But Macs are very, very good at this. Sometimes you will get Windows combinations of software. So I saw this, it was Epos Vox, I think, and made a video complaining about this. And I was like, well, it's your fault for getting the wrong processor. So he had a Threadripper. He had an AMD Threadripper machine, and it was not working for his audio applications. He was getting like random dropouts and stuff. And it's like, well, yes, because that processor is built for like maximum throughput of data and not necessarily for real-time processing of audio. And so it doesn't have the same degree of support for these consumer level audio applications that your standard AMD processor does. And so it's the same thing. And those are the things that will affect your trading, because if you have a DPC latency spike, that's a few milliseconds of, that your application gets delayed and so forth. And so, yes, from a hardware perspective, Macs would be very good for trading. It's just that the trading software isn't very good. And the operating system, I don't think that the operating system, the Apple operating system, is very good for productivity. But the hardware, from a hardware perspective, they're really great. Jumping on the Apple bandwagon because they already have a bunch of their products, it just seems like a more polished package. Yeah, it's when you get to business desktop, use cases where the Apple kind of falls apart, right? .6J is falling. I hadn't noticed. You're right. Oh, that's very curious, because the 6J is falling pretty hard, and while the treasuries did come back here, it hasn't come back in a very strong way. And in fact, we're getting some big icebergs here at the middle again at 15. So maybe there could be further downside if the 6J continues. I'm not really seeing it super clear yet in the dollar. In the dollar, we are moving up a little bit, but that doesn't seem to be correlated to what's going on in ES. Although that might give us more hints as this goes along. But let's see, like 4,500 might give us some surprises first. So I don't think that the S&P 500 has moved enough for us to really make too much of it. But we're definitely getting some beginning signs that an unanticipated flow is coming through here, aren't we? And certainly it could turn at one point where, the right gamma levels where the stock market just starts to absolutely puke everywhere, right? Yeah, Apple. I was, doing it just for video editing, I think Apple would be a good choice. But for trading, because I remember it was, what's his name? Daniel Inscape. He got a new laptop for trading and he went for the Mac. And so he has to use one of those Java-based platforms. So he's using like Quant Tower or something like that, right? That's where the disadvantage to going to the Mac comes from. Yeah, maybe he's using MotiveWave. I think you're right. But yeah, I just, especially when you're like, you have tons of windows open and stuff like that, that's where I kind of feel like the deficiencies of the Mac operating system start to become apparent, right? That's where they became apparent for Windows 11. Windows 11 is still unsuitable, although I think, so that's another video that we're going to need to make. Because soon Microsoft will be releasing their release, and then Windows 11 is finally to a point where I feel like I'm comfortable telling traders to move over. And because there are some things about Windows 11 that, like performance-wise and so forth, are better and make the switch worth it. It's just the combining Windows on the taskbar is just completely retarded. Yeah, so in Windows 11, there is no option to control how the task manager combines the windows at the bottom of the screen. So you can see I have all of these different windows here down at the bottom, and I can like click on them to hide them or bring them back up. And if I was on Windows 11, I wouldn't be able to do that. If I was on Windows 11, you would only see 3 icons down at the bottom. One for Day Trader, one for Ninja Trader, and one for web browser. I guess Rhythmic over on here because web browser is on the other screen, but you get what I mean. And so if I'm trying to find a window, I have to click Jigsaw, and then it will show me this thing that you get right here, and then I would have to figure out which one it is and then select it, right? After the update, they bring back the option to never combine windows so that each window is its own little rectangle down at the bottom of your taskbar. So this has been a big complaint about Windows 11 since its inception, and they're only just now. So if you have the preview, if you're like in the Windows Insider program, you get it. I did that for my work computer and I have it right now. And there is also an application that you can download that will switch it to that for you. But otherwise, you got to wait for the update. I don't know how long it will be, but I think that Windows 11 is to the point where traders should move over. And I'll make a video about why you should move over. Probably an ego thing. Yeah, I think so. It's like they wanted to change the interface to make it more intuitive to people, which really basically meant let's become a little bit more like Mac. And then they destroyed one of the things that made Windows so great for productivity. And when everybody was like, oh, we really need to change it, the developers were like, what? Why would you want that? We don't understand why that would be a big deal. And it was only after people whining and complaining for years that they finally fixed it. So the topic of the next video will probably be this docking station thing. I might be able to record my... So I really want to work on my desk again this weekend. That's probably the first thing that I'm going to do. Work on the desk, and hopefully we can get that out of the way. And then I can record the video about smart money concepts. That's the next video that I really need to work on. I don't know if I'll get the smart money concepts out before I need to get this other one about the docking station that they wanted. And I don't know what we should do with the docking station because I don't know if I'll really be able to fully utilize it in my setup. I really want to go and do more stuff with KVMs because this KVM switch is great, and it has one feature that I really like that allows me to have PCA on monitor 1 and PCB on monitor 2, and then you just switch the keyboard between them, and that's super, super, super nice. And then if I want them to all be one machine or the other, I can do that as well. I love that. But it's like there's some limitations with it. Like it doesn't do the latest version of DisplayPort. I can't do like 100 like high refresh rates and things like that. So then there's some other KVM switches created by level 3 Tech or whatever they're called that do kind of give me the connectivity that I want. And maybe even that's another thing is that I think I want to do like 3 monitors and 3 machines because I want to have a machine that will be like a data crunching machine. So my laptop, my training machine, and a data cruncher. But I don't think that one has the feature that allows me to have computer A on this screen, computer B on this screen, and So I don't know what I'll get, but I think I may continue to make a couple of KVM switch videos. Oh, I don't know if I'm running that late. I should get going though, huh? It used to be before that I had like a morning stand up in the morning and there was a meeting that I always needed to make it to. Now it's not so much because I can see on my other window what's going on and that they're okay for now, so. Well, actually, maybe not. There has been some weird stuff happening. Non-disruptive issue. It is time for me to get going. And I think I answered all the questions, right? So, I'll see you guys tomorrow. In the meantime, stay